This week, we are at the Ironman 70.3 European Championship in Wiesbaden, Germany. Follow 70.3 World Champion Sebastian Kienle as he attempts to win the European crown. And meet some of the other favorites for the men's and women's titles. One of the oldest spa towns in Europe, the venerable city of Wiesbaden, hosts the Ironman 70.3 European Championship for the 7th time. Providing a suitable setting for the most important 70.3 race in Europe, this is one of the toughest and most picturesque 70.3 courses in the world.
The swim
course here at the Raunheimer Waldsee has got a lot of sand and a lot of beach character. The athletes swim 2 laps, and there is an Australian accent on the other side of the lake, which is attractive for the spectators and the athletes, because they come out of the water and the crowd can see the athletes. At 23 degrees, it's an ideal water temperature, and it's a smooth exit out of the water, so there will be good transition times. The bike course in Wiesbaden is infamous, but also very popular. There are 1,500 meters of climbing, so the athletes feel like it's constantly going uphill. There are hardly any passages where they can rest, and there's a great climb in Kloppenheim, the Kloppenheimer Stich, where we have the king of the mountain. It's about who gets up the climb the quickest. Then we obviously have the climb up to the Platte, which is legendary and asks for everything the athletes have to give. What's special about the run course is that we have 4 laps that go straight through town. We have a great atmosphere at the spectator points, like the one in the Wilhelmstrasse, and we have quiet passages here in the Kurpark. Contrary to expectations, the course in Wiesbaden isn't as flat as it appears, and there are a few climbs which are short, but as they have to run them 4 times, they wear on and use up quite a bit of energy. But since it's a very flowing course, you won't be able to tell it in the finish times. Reigning Ironman 70.3 World Champion Sebastian Kienle is one of the big favorites for the European 70.3 title. Although he isn't back to his best after some injury problems early in the year, the 28-year-old is glad to be back in Wiesbaden for one of his favorite races.
Wiesbaden
is a good place for me, and with my win here in 2009, my star has risen. I really like the course here, and it's an unbelievably nice atmosphere, a great location for such a race, and a strong lineup of athletes. It all just fits together. The day before the race, it's business as usual for Sebastian Kienle at the Kurhaus. 2 of the most important appointments of the day are the anti-doping check, which is mandatory before every Ironman race, and the pro-race briefing. Once he's done with those, he goes for a training run with some of his colleagues, and then it's off to transition to drop his bike, where he's only too happy to spend some time with his fans. I think it's one of the most important tasks you have as a professional athlete. You know, it's something where you can give back a little bit to society. I hope that I can possibly be a good role model. After a sensational 2012 season with a 2nd place at the Ironman European Championship in Frankfurt, his win at the 70.3 World Championship in Las Vegas, and his 4th place in Kona, where a puncture prevented him from getting onto the podium, Kienle has truly arrived in Ironman. Today, he's a household name that is feared and respected by his colleagues.
Our
sport lives off the respect for each other and the other athletes, and I've always had big respect for those guys who have done it already, because I know how hard they've worked for it. I didn't think I could play already right at the top, in their league, and it means a lot to me when I realized that they respect me now. The success didn't just come overnight, and for years Kienle has trained hard to get to where he is now. It's definitely not always coming easily, but I enjoy to come back and being able to say, look, you went through with it, Afterwards, relaxing is so much better. You know, to lay on the couch and watch TV only becomes really nice when you've cycled in the rain for 6 hours before. It's those little things that suddenly have a completely different meaning. With another big title to play for, Kienle knows that he's only got a chance to win the race if he minimizes the deficit on his weakest discipline, the swim. Tactically, I want to keep the deficit after the swim as low as possible. If my legs are good, I will definitely start the odd attack to see what my rivals have to say about it. But I also know that I'm in good running form at the moment, despite the problems this season. So nothing would be lost if I go on the run course with the other fast guys. Adding the European 70.3 crown to his world title would be an equally big achievement. Especially after the problems this season, it would mean a lot to me to win this race here. But it's going to be very difficult. It's the day before the race, and the tension is growing at the expo outside the Kurhaus. With world champion Sebastian Kienle the main favorite, another hotly tipped athlete is 2008 Olympic champion Jan Frodeno, who was here for his first 70.3 race. For me, it's a very short-term transition, because 3 weeks ago I had the Team World Champs in Hamburg. It was a sprint race covering a significantly shorter distance, and I had different training for that. I've now had about 2 weeks of training in which I could get used to my time trial bike, the nutrition that's necessary, and all those details that are new to me. In that respect, not everything is going to be as slick as one is used to from me, but that's what makes it a bit of a challenge. With a win in the 70.3 race in Wimbledon and a second place in Norway, Richie Nichols has had a strong season so far, and the 26-year-old knows who he's got to beat to win the European crown.
Definitely, Sebastian Kienle will be the big favourite out there. To beat him, I think, stay as close to him on the bike as possible, and then see what you can do on the run, see if you can put a bit of time into him. And if you can get enough of time into him, then you can maybe beat him. But I think it'll be very tough.
With 3 70.3 titles already in the bag this season, Austria's Lisa Huteler is one of the obvious title favourites for the women's race. But for Catriona Morrison, this is anyone's title to win.
You have to come to a European Championship expecting there to be a really strong field. There are some unknowns. We have people who are just stepping up to the half Ironman distance, some ITU athletes, Daniela and Anya, and I think that's exciting because it's so good to see more and more women participating in the longer distance events. We have people that have been topping the podium all year, and it's down to who has the best race on the day.
Another podium contender, this year's 70.3 Asia-Pacific champion, Annabelle Luxford.
Wiesbaden was really good timing in my preparation for Vegas 70.3 Worlds. I heard it was a really challenging course and a great field is assembled here. So there's some, I mean, Vegas is going to be a hard race, a quality field, so it's nice to, a month out, get to have a hit out against some great competition.
A beautiful morning awaits the athletes at the Raunheimer Waldsee. Sebastian Kienle is in transition early to prepare his bike. His main contenders, Richie Nichols and Jan Frodeno, get ready nearby, and the former Olympic champion is in the distinguished company of 2 former Kona winners, Faris Al-Sultan and Thomas Hellriegel. At this point, Sebastian Kienle is fully focused on the task at hand. I don't want to think about the swim start yet, but just focus on what I'm doing in the moment. That's very important, and you've got to stay in the moment and don't think about the race. As Kienle makes his way to the water, age grouper Jürgen Müller, who is in Wiesbaden with his family, also finishes his transition preparations. For him and all the other age groupers, this is going to be a challenging day. For the pros, the race start is only minutes away. Can Kienle compensate for the injury niggles that have plagued him for some parts of the season and add the European 70.3 title to his World Championship crown? Only the race has the answer. All the athletes start their day with a 2-loop swim in the Raunheimer Waldsee. Following an Australian exit after 900 meters, they do another 1 kilometer in the 23-degree waters of the lake. At 7:30, the men's pro race is underway. It's an extremely strong field of short course triathletes and half Ironman specialists, battling for the best positions in the water right from the start. Shortly after, the ladies' race kicks off. In the fairly small lake, the 2,400 athletes ready to take on the challenge start in several waves. At 7:45, the first age groupers embark on their half Ironman journey. Originating from 45 nations, they have 8 hours to complete the race. At the front of the race, Olympic champion Jan Frodeno sets a very fast pace early in the swim. It's the short course racers who are in control in the water, Jan Frodeno, but also reigning European short course champion Ivan Vasiliev of Russia. Halfway through the swim, Jan Frodeno is the first to exit the water, followed by Ivan Vasiliev, Josh Amberger, and younger Vasiliev brother Denis. Behind them, the fastest women are drawing nearer to the Australian exit. It's Switzerland's Rahel Kuhn in the lead, with Australian Annabelle Luxford in tow. The two have created a gap of 10 seconds on the rest of the ladies' field. Back to the men's race, where Ivan Vasiliev and Jan Frodeno lead a group of 5. Together with Josh Amberger, Denis Vasiliev and Matt Schrabot, they continue to increase the gap on the weaker swimmers in the men's field. The pack of 5 remains tightly together until the last stroke. After 20 minutes 39 seconds, Frodeno is the first to come ashore, closely followed by Amberger and Vasiliev. A very speedy swim indeed, nearly 3 minutes faster than Michael Raylet at his course record race in 2010. While the leaders grab their T1 bags, the chase group is 40 seconds behind. There is no time to lose for Jan Frodeno in transition. At his 70.3 premiere, this man is definitely on a mission.
Auf dem Weg in die Wechselzone auf seiner ersten Mitteldistanz. Das ist der Olympiasieger, das ist Jan Frodeno!
Merely 1.5 minutes later, the two quickest ladies, Rahel Kuhn and Annabelle Luxford, ready themselves for the bike. Luxford is the first to grab her bike.
Here she comes, first lady of the day, Annabelle Luxford.
10 seconds later, Rahel Kuhn sets out. Nearly 1 minute ahead of third place Svenja Baslin. 3 minutes and 5 seconds after the leading men, Sebastian Kienle exits the swim. With swimming not being his strongest discipline, he must not lose any time in transition 1. As Kienle grabs his bike, his catch-up race for the lead is on. After the break, will Sebastian Kienle use his outstanding bike skills to catch the flying Jan Frodeno? And who can challenge Annabelle Luxford at the 70.3 European Championship? The bike course sets off with a flat section before athletes reach the hilly Taunus region. They will have tackled an altitude difference of 1,500 meters on their way to T2 in Wiesbaden. 20k into the race, Jan Frodeno leads a group of 5 with Matt Schrabot and Josh Amberger on his wheel. 2 minutes behind at this stage, a strong chase group of 14, including Richie Nichols and Sebastian Kienle. On the women's side, Annabelle Luxford is in control of the race. Passing the 21.8k mark, the Australian has increased her lead to 1 minute and 48 seconds. In second position at this stage, Daniela Rief of Switzerland. Leaving T1 and 4th, Rief is steadily climbing the leaderboard. Compatriot Rahel Kuhn has lost touch with the lead. Back to the men's race, where Frodeno, Schrabot and Amberger remain at the top. But the chase group around Sebastian Kienle is already breathing down their necks. Cheered on by his fan club, superbiker Kienle is pushing a fast pace, closing the gap to the lead with every pedal stroke. In 22nd position after the swim, the reigning world champion is back in his comfort zone. And 46 kilometers into the bike, Sebastian Kienle has taken the lead. He heads a group of 14, including Jan Frodeno, Italian Alessandro De Gasperi, Germany's Andreas Streitz, and Richie Nichols of Scotland. Two-thirds into the bike, Annabel Luxford still heads the ladies' race, but her lead over closest rival keeps shrinking. And as Daniela Rief passes the 63.4 kilometer mark, she's only 1 minute adrift. Tamsin Lewis of Great Britain is in third position, whilst race favourite Lisa Huttila is in fourth, failing to make an impact in her strongest discipline, the bike. With only a few kilometers to go on the bike, Germany's Andreas Streitz puts himself in the front of the pack. Behind him on the downhill, Olympic champion Jan Frodeno and world champion Sebastian Kienle. After a very fast 90 kilometers, Andreas Streitz is the first to dismount his bike, followed by Jan Frodeno and Sebastian Kienle, with the top 6 men all within 8 seconds. But Sebastian Kienle has failed to create a gap on the bike. Will he withstand the attacks by the field's fastest runners? Off the bike merely 20 seconds later, Sylvain Soudry and Alessandro De Gasperi. And just behind them, power runner Richie Nichols. Sebastian Kienle is the first to embark on his run. He is followed by Tommy Degam and Andreas Streitz. Sylvain Soudry and Alessandro De Gasperi all within 30 seconds. Richie Nichols starts his half marathon 40 seconds later than Sebastian Kienle. Jan Frodeno, second off the bike, had problems finding his run bag and is 1 minute 23 seconds back as he leaves T2. A shade over 20 minutes later, Annabel Luxford is on her last meters on 2 wheels. After 3 hours and 8 minutes and 42 seconds, she dismounts her bike and has no time to lose in transition. While her lead amounted to up to more than 1.5 minutes at times, Luxford has been losing time over the last 30 kilometers.
Well done! Off you go!
Second place, Daniela Rief of Switzerland has reduced the gap to 22 seconds. As she hands over her bike, the race for first position is on. While Tamsin Lewis is already out on the run course, Lisa Huttila starts the last leg, followed by Catriona Morrison shortly after. In the meantime, age grouper Jürgen Müller is pushing hard in the saddle. Just like everyone else, he's having a tough time tackling the hilly Taunus area. But after 4 hours, 24 minutes and 49 seconds, Jürgen is a happy man to dismount his bike. Cheered on by his family, there is another challenge yet to overcome, a half marathon through charming Wiesbaden. From T2, athletes exit onto a fast and versatile foot race. Running 4 loops through the parks and streets of Wiesbaden, they can be sure of fervent crowd support all the way through the pretty yet tough course. While Sebastian Kienle is in the lead early in the run, the chasers are hot on his heels. After 3 kilometers, power runner Richie Nichols comes flying from behind, first passing Tommy Degam and then world champion Kienle. Nichols runs the first 3.1 kilometers in 9 minutes and 47 seconds. What a dizzying pace. Before long, Tommy Degam has overtaken Sebastian Kienle too. About 5k into the run, Alessandro De Gasperi of Italy comes closer to Kienle, passing the German with ease. As De Gasperi powers away, Jan Frodeno continues to climb the leaderboard. In 11th position out of T2, He's in second at the 5.7k mark, trailing Richie Nichols by only 1 minute. In the women's field, Annabelle Luxford maintains a fast pace. After the first 5k, she's increased her lead over Daniela Rief to 50 seconds. But Rief looks very relaxed as she is carried through the streets of Wiesbaden by the enthusiastic crowds. On his last lap, Richie Nichols is still not showing any signs of weakening, keeping up his mad pace. Jan Frodeno's just as fast, trailing the Flying Scot by a mere minute with 3 kilometers to go. Alessandro De Gasperi is more than 3 minutes adrift, but manages to keep Sebastian Kienle behind him at bay. On the last kilometers, Kienle is visibly having a hard time to keep his pace. With 4k to go, Annabelle Luxford's victory is under threat. Daniela Rief has really geared up on her third lap and overtakes the Australian before long. Passing the 18.3 kilometer mark in first, Rief has gained more than 1 minute on Luxford over the last 5 kilometers. In third place, Catriona Morrison, nearly 5 minutes back, but running at an even faster pace than Rief. With yet another incredible run split, Richie Nichols powers home to secure his second 70.3 win of the season, also breaking Michael Raylett's course record by more than 6 minutes. Cheered on by the enthusiastic German crowds, 2008 Olympic champion Jan Frodeno finishes second in his first ever 70.3 race. In third place, Alessandro De Gasperi from Italy. For the second time in 2013, Richie Nichols from Scotland claims the top podium spot and continues his astonishing season.
Over the Moon, it's a great race for me. I had a good, quite a good swim for me. The bike worked well, and then I had a good run. It's a shame Jan had trouble in transition with finding his bag, which is a shame because we could have had a good fight up the front, but really happy to take the win.
70.3 world champion Sebastian Kienle couldn't withhold the attacks of the other athletes, and after a tough race, he finishes in 6th place, clearly not quite back yet from his injury. I still pay for what happened in spring. If you don't have enough training under your belt, it obviously gets very difficult. It's not without reason that this is the European Championship, and you don't get handed any gifts here. I don't want that either, and it wasn't like it today. Of course, I'm a bit disappointed, but what counts at the end is that I made the best out of a difficult day. In the women's race, Daniela Rief takes the lead late in the race, and the former Olympic distance star celebrates her first ever Ironman victory after a strong performance and an outstanding bike. After leading large parts of the race, Annabelle Luxford crosses the finish line in 2nd place. And 6-time 70.3 winner Catriona Morrison comes back from injury with an impressive race and 3rd place. But all the plaudits go to 70.3 newcomer Daniela Rief from Switzerland. I have prepared really well for the race, and I really wanted to produce a good performance. I felt great, also the days before the race. I have trained well and everything worked out perfectly. It was ace. As athlete after athlete crosses the finish line in Wiesbaden, and everyone celebrates their own personal triumph, Ironman enthusiast Jürgen Müller is also on his last meters. Cheered on by his family, he finally runs down the blue carpet and crosses the finish line in Wiesbaden for the 3rd time in his life. I'm extremely glad that I managed to get through the race. It was hard work today, but it's just great here. The atmosphere in the finish area, the music, the fans, all the people, my family, who I've seen on the run course a few times and who motivated me even more. After the first lap of the run, I really had to dig deep because I pretty much destroyed my legs on the bike. I had cramps in my thighs, but I managed to get through and cross the finish line. In this week's Kona Pro rankings for the men, there are no significant changes in the top 10. And Sebastian Kienle, who couldn't quite get the result he wanted in Wiesbaden, still holds the top spot. Eneko Janusson second and Andreas Raelert third. In the women's Kona Pro rankings, Leander Kay from Great Britain is still in first place, ahead of Switzerland's Caroline Steffen and Gina Crawford from New Zealand. With a win in Kalmar next week, Jodie Swallow could move up the rankings. Next week, we travel to Northern Europe for the Ironman Sweden in Kalmar. Introduce local favourite Jonas Djurbeck, who's looking to improve on last year's 4th place to climb on the podium. And meet some of the other race favourites for the Ironman Sweden title.